All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ Podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board, for the board. We hope that you enjoy.
Oh, this is going to be a clusterfuck. Welcome to episode 246 of the KissFAQ podcast. I hope my mic's on, I hope I'm pressed record, and I hope we're all ready to go. You know what? Shut up, Julian. I am your host. And let's just talk about something a little bit more important than anything else, is J.R. Smalling, the original road manager for the band, has cancer. Let me just see if I get these details right, because last year he was diagnosed with metastatic bone cancer, which generally has a poor prognosis. However, his medical teams found a combination treatment that is stopping the disease, and the prognosis looks positive for the outcome. However, in America, healthcare can be very expensive, and JR needs our help. Any fan who's been a fan of the band and has ever listened to a live has heard his "You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best" intro, which he came up with originally. And you can read Ken Sharp or Jeff and Kurt's books about how he came up with that opening, which is the opening used by the band to this day, slightly different form. But he was part of an original road crew of, 6 guys who went out with the band when they were still wearing leather and t-shirts, when they were still blowing off people's hands with special effects. He was part of that. He was part of the grueling road that took them to where they became in mid-1976. They were able to sign with Glickman Marks and take their show to the next road, the next level. So, as Kiss fans, if you're able to contribute to his GoFundMe, the link can be found in a sticky on the KissFAQ. It can be found all over Facebook now. $5, $3, $10, whatever. It's not about how much. It's about how many people we can get to give a few bucks to help someone out who's in need. So I certainly hope that you're able to. The podcast is doing a button fundraiser. They've come up with a really cool design for a button. You give them $10, they'll send you a button, and they'll donate the proceeds to his care. So that's one fun way. Maybe if you're like-minded, you can come up with something similar that'll interest fans without breaking any copyrights or trademarks. The thing is if you can't give, share. Get the message out on your Twitter, your Instagrams, your whatever social media that you have access and control over, because any help is a big help. Don't bitch and moan and turn threads or topics into negative about who's doing what and who's not doing what. That's irrelevant. This is about JR's life, and do something positive so that he can have a positive outcome to what is a very serious battle that he's fighting. So, JR, if you hear this, from all of us at the KissFAQ podcast, we wish you the very best. We wish you help. You're in our thoughts. Those of us, you're in our prayers as well. So we wish you the very best, and we'll get the word out as much as we can. All right, let's move on to some slightly happier stuff before we get into today's topic. Yesterday, happy birthday, Tommy and Eric. That lineup, 15th anniversary of their first show. Their first, as a established lineup rather than Tommy filling in someone's boots, on a temporary basis, took place in Perth, Australia. And that night they played a Pledge Allegiance to the State of Rock and Roll. Rock the Nation tour. Those were the days, actually, when you didn't know what you're going to get on that tour, and they did all sorts of fun shit, especially when they came back here. So, Tommy, Eric, thank you for everything that you brought to the band. I'm only saying that on my own behalf, because I wouldn't have seen half as many Kiss shows if it wasn't for this lineup, and I know other people have different opinions, and that's nice. They're theirs, not mine. So, very cool. Indie Expo. I'm going to be hopping on a plane shortly. Won't be a 747, but Indie Expo this weekend. I'm there. I've posted some pictures of, some other merch that I'll be selling at my table. Be a lot of vendors, a lot of guests. Mark Slaughter, John Krabby. Oh yeah, Bruce. Tommy Thayer. Can't go wrong. So it should be a very fun weekend. Look forward to hopefully going Facebook Live, or maybe even doing a couple little facking off episodes while I'm out there, just to see what I can share. And then finally, this is just a little bit of a reminder. Last week's episode, featuring parts of Backstage Pass, was not a review of the whole book. It was taking a few quotes that have been taken out of context in various places, 20-page threads on the FAQ, arguments on Facebook, because you don't think the FAQ is the only place where people argue and disagree about Kiss, do you? You're not that stupid.
What?
You're not a real moron if you think...
There's other places.
There are other places where people get into it. Just look at
I thought that's where the only argumentative Kiss fans went.
No, apparently they've also
At least that's
been
what
on.
I heard.
Apparently they've also been on the Kiss Cruisers forum, which shut down its commenting and has been banning. I left there because it was bullshit. Since I'm not going on the cruise again, but it was just about those quotes, and we tried to set the context to which they were appeared in the book, the bigger context. So obviously we completely failed for a few people, and I'm sorry, but no, I'm not. We did make it very clear. Whatever. Let's, Lonnie, you saw Ace Frehley this week, and hopefully you sent me a PM so that I can go on mute and do my little side.
I did send you a PM. Pretty good. I did. I got to see Ace Frehley this weekend. He was at a small outdoor amphitheater in Chesterfield, Missouri, about 20 minutes from my house. So it was pretty nice. Ace Frehley came that close to town. He was part of a little festival that a festival promoter put together with Enough's Enough and Stars and Angel.
And that's
Ace Frehley headlining. They announced it back in, I don't know, it was like January or something. I was like, is this really going to happen? This is kind of crazy, And it did. It was great. We had, my wife and I were in the front row, right by Ace. It was awesome. So we got there. And we were watching Stars. And my wife leans over to me and she goes, are these guys supposed to be any good or not? I go,
Supposed to be any good.
I go, yeah. And she kind of rolls her eyes like, why am I here? But that's okay. So,
can't please everyone.
Not the first time she's rolled her eyes and said, why am I here, is it? Come on.
Not the first time that day she rolled her eyes at me either. So. So Ace came out, he played the same set list that he played the night before. I wish I wouldn't have cheated and looked at what he played the night before, because I was happy with it. I mean, Rip It Out, Parasite, Hard Times, Watching You, Rockin' with the Boys, Rocket Ride, Snowblind, Strange Ways, Rock Soldiers, New York Groove, Shock Me, Cold Gin, Detroit Rock City, and Deuce. 15 songs. I wish he would have played a little bit longer, but you know what? I enjoyed his set list thoroughly as the night was going on. I mean, Watching You, Hard Times, Strange Ways, it's good stuff and different stuff than what you always get from a Kiss show. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. And
a Kiss show, yeah.
From a Kiss show, correct. I hadn't seen Ace in, I guess it was like 3.5 years was the last time he was here. So it was good to see him. He looked good. He sounded good. He played good. His band was terrific.
Question for you.
Am I taking questions? Yes, I'll take a question.
Okay. Question from over here from Canada. Yes. I'd like to know, were you disappointed that there wasn't more from the new album played?
I'm sorry, no, that's fake news.
You're the fake news. No, I knew there wouldn't be more from the album played. It's the only song he's really playing from the album. So I wasn't disappointed in that, because you know what? I'd rather hear when I go to an Ace show, I'd rather hear Parasite. I'd rather hear Hard Times and Rocket Ride and New York Groove. And you're going to get Shock Me and Cold Gin. And I get while he plays Detroit Rock City and Deuce, I'm really not into it when he plays Detroit Rock, especially like Detroit Rock City. It's like, all right, I know it has like signature solo in it. You didn't write the solo, but it has a signature solo in it. Yeah. I'd rather hear more personally. I'd rather hear more Fraley's Comet stuff or Second Sighting stuff or something like that, as opposed to Detroit Rock City. Watching You was really cool, actually. I mean, I wasn't really planning on that, but it's a classic Kiss song with a classic Kiss riff. So that was actually really enjoyable hearing that. It's one of my favorite Kiss songs. So
you need to go see Return of the Comet.
I agree. I agree because
actually they need to come see your neck of the woods, not vice versa.
Neck of the woods. What are you doing?
Another question from Canada. I'd like to know, what was the best song of the night?
Best song of the night for me was Hard Times, just because it's something you don't get at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think I've heard him play Hard Times. I've seen him 4 or 5 times by himself. Maybe I've heard him do Hard Times before, but maybe not very often I've heard him do Hard Times.
So you enjoyed it. So that's what's
for sure. That's the most important part. So he was really good. He didn't play as long as I would have wanted him to. I wanted to play maybe 2 or 3 more songs, but the place he blamed it on the fact that the outdoor venue had a 10:30 curfew, and he had that really, and that could be true.
Yeah.
That's cool. Oh, how was Angel?
Angel was cool. They were pretty spot on, very very sound, very on the money, I thought.
I
didn't watch them
really good band.
I mean, they were that's what struck me the most, is how proficient they were and how tight they were more than anything else. My wife did comment, how many people are in this band? Because there's like 7 people on stage with keyboards and everything else going. I was like, I said, well, how many people are in Guns N' Roses? You didn't complain about that when we saw them. So.
Yeah, I think what's cool is what I'm finding with Angel is how well their catalog has aged. And same with Stars for that matter, but... very cool. Glad you got to
it was a good time. It was a good show.
Everything I've read online, all the reviews and all the comments from people is that Ace is finally clicking with the new guys, with Gene's band, that they're coming across powerful. Things are very synced up, and the quality of the shows, the performances, is way up from the last time they saw Ace, which in many cases wasn't in the last year either, like you.
Right. I saw him with Richie Scarlett and the other guys. When Ace is getting ready to come on, this guy, I don't know, a few rows behind me goes, Richie, MF, and Scarlett. And I'm like, he's not even in the band anymore, dude. You just need to calm down and have another beer.
So before we move into today's topic, Lonnie, would you like to apologize to anyone for what you did at that show?
Oh, yeah, because apparently I was out of my mind hammered during the last show. No, actually, I do the show 90% of the time sitting at my desk. And I'm so involved in what I'm doing half the time. Like today, Julian had the message me, hey, you going to do the show? I'm like, oh yeah, I got to do the show right now. So I'm sitting here, I'm looking at you guys on one monitor, and my other monitor usually has work-related stuff still on it, and my desk has work-related stuff on it. So a lot of the times during the show, I'm distracted by my other life. And so last week, or 2 weeks ago when I was on the show, I was able to do the show from the comfort of my own home and have a beer after work and relax. So no, I'm not drunk or hammered or. One guy said I think Lonnie should have to do 2 beers before the start of every show. So maybe I was just a little more vocal because I was a little more relaxed and at home. So sorry.
That totally isn't what I was getting at. It was the guy.
What were you getting at?
The guy whose photos you blocked by standing up.
Oh, that's funny too.
Yeah, someone said, I can't remember who you were, and I do apologize, but you sent me some pictures, which I did pass on to Lonnie, and it's just Lonnie's head blocking the view of the stage. And he's like, Lonnie's in a lot of my photos. I'm like,
it's just giant in the front of the stage.
Yeah, sit down.
And you're not even that tall. It's like,
I'm
come
not
on.
that tall. Well, what makes it worse though is like my wife's standing next to me. She's like a foot shorter than me, so you can see the drop off from me to her. So it looks like I'm this freaking giant standing in the front of the stage.
That's so funny. All right, well, let's get into today's topic, and it's straight from the FAQ. And for people who are not members, it's in one of the forums that you can actually see without joining. And it's ranking the 1980s studio output, just like we've been doing with our stolen methodology from the Lipstick panel when we do albums, that we rank everything in order and assign a highest point to our favorite and low point to our least favorite, then add them all up and come up with a panel ranking of whatever list it happens to be. We're doing the same with the studio albums that were released in the 1980s, and that includes Smashes, Thrashes, and Shits. And Kiss Killers, since both of those included new studio recordings. Of course, the glorious Let's Put the X in Sex and You Make Me Rock Hard, and we won't talk about Eric Carr's. Thank you. Yeah, on one, and of course the 4 new tracks on the Michael James Jackson produced Kiss Killers. So Smashes got to be in there anyway because it's the band's highest officially certified album of the 1980s and of the whole Unmasked period. So eat it, anyone who hates it. I've got like 3 copies of the damn thing here. So let's just get into our list, and we'll just go around, and from least favorite to favorite, we'll give our lists, and then I'll do the math. I've already done the math in the background, but you don't need to know that, dear viewer. Let's start with Ken, who's barely said a word so far today.
Yeah, I'm just listening, enjoying the show.
Listening and learning.
Listening and learning, yes. All right, so the least favorite of all those releases in the 80s is, for me, Smashes Thrashes, the one you just talked about, is my least favorite. Mostly because it's first of all, there's the 2 new songs that are just abominations as far as I'm concerned, and then them having Eric Carr sing Beth, which was kind of ridiculous. He sings it fine, but it's just there was no need to do that on that one. So that's on the bottom.
Why don't we, just go through each one of our lists, and then I will do the calculations, and we'll do the panels ranking, and then we can talk about all of the albums, in sequence. So
just give you the list.
Yeah, just give me the list, and all. Just by the way, everyone has Smashes at shit bottom, so there's a shock.
Smashes, yeah, that's what, number 10.
Yep.
Okay, so 9 is Killers. 8, I had Hot in the Shade. 7, I had Crazy Nights. 6, I had Animalize. 5, I had Asylum. 4, Music from the Elder. 3, Unmasked. Number 2, Lick It Up. And number 1, Creatures of the Night.
There's a shock. Mark, how about you?
I almost made that number 2, but yeah, I made it number 1.
What's your list?
Well, probably not too many surprises, but some might be. 10, Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits. Number 9, Hot in the Shade. Number 8, Animalize. Number 7, Killers. Number 6, Music from the Elder. Number 5, Lick It Up. Number 4, Unmasked. Number 3, Crazy Nights. Number 2, Creatures of the Night. And number 1, Asylum, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Let me just do a double take. All right, Lonnie.
All right. Number 10 for me is Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits. Number 9 is Hot Shade. 8 is Killers. 7, Music from the Elder. 6, Animalize. 5, Crazy Nights. 4, Asylum. 3, Unmasked. 2, Lick It Up. And 1, Creatures of the Night. Ken and I think match on 3, 2, and 1.
Wow.
Pretty good.
Just checking my notes just to make sure. All right. From least favorite to favorite, my picks are Smashes, Hits, Animalize, Killers, Unmasked, Elder, Crazy Nights. Then into my top 3, Asylum, Creatures, and Lick It Up is my favorite of the 1980s. So let's talk about Smashes first. Ken, you've had your say on that. So Mark, why do you hate Smashes so much?
Well, I mean, besides the fact that the studio tracks are weak, terrible, I mean, just some of the remixes that they did as well were just not very good. It just doesn't sit with me very well. I mean, I can understand it sold very well because, it's a greatest hits record, and maybe at that time period there was a new wave of people buying Kiss albums, so maybe it sold well then. But yeah, I just think the studio tracks are pretty weak.
Lonnie, how about you?
In agreement, the studio tracks are weak. Eric Carr thing I'm not a fan of. And I don't like the way the sound. I don't like the way the songs were remixed with fading, taking out the the pounding drums on I Love It Loud and other versions like that. I'm not a fan of the mixes on that album, and I'm not a fan of the new songs on the album. So it got the bottom ranking.
Yeah, I actually played the hell out of this album in Singapore. Loved it. Loved the new songs, and then I saw the video to You Make Me Rock Hard. That kind of changes everything. You Make Me Rock Hard is okay as a song, but the production is so tinny and kind of hyper processed. It's like trying to out Nevison and what he had done on the previous album, which may have been okay for that material because some of it was actually good, but on Smashes, those songs were not good. And I know Paul has justified them, saying, that's just the best I could do at the time. Well, I would have put on 2 more songs from the 70s, actually. But there you go. Or done like, the UK at least included, I think, Reason to Live and Crazy Crazy Nights on that edition. All right. In 9th place, the panel overall ranking is Hot in the Shade. Or Not in the Shade, as the case may well more be. Ken, what are your thoughts on Hot in the Shade?
Yeah, that was low on my list. It's because I think the songs in general are not great. They're not horrible. Well, a couple of them are, but they're not great. And the other issue is it's another production thing. It's demos, and Eric Carr's not playing on all the tracks either. So that's the standpoint. I mean, there's a couple I enjoy. I will play it every now and then, but it's just falls far beneath a lot of their other material.
Yeah, it's hard to, it's like as far as you can get from the production of Crazy Nights. It's like the difference between Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over, Crazy Nights and Hot in the Shade. There's no fidelity or depth in the sound. It's just very flat. To me, it's all filler, not enough killer. So that's why it's so low down on my list, even though there are a couple of great songs on there, without doubt. When there's 15 songs on an album and you have to kind of rank it against everything else, overall it's just weak. Mark?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that I had a problem with, you just touched on, way too many songs on the record. They would have axed maybe, half of them. It might have been a bit stronger of a record, but again, there's so many points on this that didn't sit well with me. And some of the songs sounded like they were just put on there just for putting, material on. Other songs had drum machine rather than Eric Carr. And I mean, you have a great drummer in your band. Why wouldn't you use him? And, it's just, it seemed like a very phoned in record. I know it was a time that they needed to really keep the eye on the dollar, so to speak. So they, went to a cheaper studio, and, a lot of stuff was done to keep the budget in check. But I mean, you're supposed to be making a record that inspires your fan base to buy it. And this was just not one of them, I think.
Yeah, they wanted to be street again, apparently. All right, Lonnie.
Yeah, I think you guys nailed it when you said there's just too many songs on the album. I mean, it's about quality and not quantity. And at the time, though, a lot of bands were doing this by putting, just because you can fit 75 minutes worth of music onto a CD doesn't mean you should. A lot of bands were doing this at the time. Just, we can fit more songs on here. Well, let's put more songs on here. We have the ability to do so. Guns N' Roses did it in 1991 with Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. Both those albums are extremely long, and you can make the argument that you could really shorten those down too, that they went with quantity as opposed to quality, making one great album as opposed to 2 really long albums. So for me, I think that's where it really loses it, is that amongst all those songs, there are a few gems in there. With Forever, obviously, was a big hit for them. I really like Hide Your Heart. And, Rise to It isn't a bad song. But after that, there's just not a whole lot there with, Read My Body and Silver Spoon and Cadillac Dreams. And it's just, I could name about 5 or 6 or 7 more or 8 more bad songs in a row that are on that album. So there's another. Hey Boomerang, it's awful. So, that's my argument. That's my problem. While there are some good songs on there, the terrible outweighs the few gems that are found on that.
Yeah, the shocker is that Sword and Stone didn't even get another look and Read
How
My
is
Body.
that? Doesn't make any sense.
Talking about totally copying. You go from copying Bon Jovi on the previous album to copying Def Leppard and Aerosmith. Obviously they'd had Walk This Way with the Run DMC with the pseudo rap. Crap of Read My Body, but Read My Body is probably the death punch. That's the nut punch on the album. So, yeah, really poor. All right. 10-9. In 8th place, Kiss Killers. You guys kill me. I love those 4 songs. But they're all kind of one note. There's no real dynamic shift between them, and I think the lack of a Gene song probably explains why some of you guys had this lower than me. But I love those songs, and the first time I heard A Legend Tonight, which is well after it had come out, obviously, I just loved where they were going with those 4 songs, and then as I learned more about the history of what was going on and the reason why those songs exist, the edits and all that shit on the rest of it are just garbage, just pointless to me. So those songs are decent. Mark?
I had it at 7. I like those 4 songs. In fact, Nowhere to Run, I think, is a good enough song that just that song alone trounces Hot in the Shade easily for me. So, and the other ones are good too. Legend Tonight is really good. I mean, those 2 I think are the strongest of the material that they did of the 4, and just those alone, I think definitely give me a stronger listen than Hot in the Shade. Funny enough. But I think the production also is pretty good, and it was also kind of an indicator of what to maybe expect for upcoming stuff with Kiss, because they had Michael James Jackson then working on stuff with them. So, it was kind of a foreshadow of what was to come.
Yeah, oddly, it's closer sonically to Lick It Up, in my opinion, than it is Creatures. So you and I actually had that the highest. So let's see who rated it the lowest. Ken, let's go to you.
I rated it the lowest. Number 9 for me. It's again, those songs are good, good songs. A couple of them pretty darn good. I love Nowhere to Run a lot, but it's partly the fact that it's just a compilation for the most part, and then though it's produced pretty well. The other thing about no Gene, basically, I don't know if Gene even plays on it at all. On those new tracks, and we had Bob Kulick, I believe, and who knows? There was no Ace either, so you're missing some people there, I think, and that's another fact of it's just falls down there, below the regular studio albums.
Fair enough. Let me just ask you before going to Lonnie, as a fan who was actually a fan at the time, when do you remember getting this album? Did you get it as an import early on and hear about it, or was it way after, since this is pre-internet?
I got it as I heard about it, and I finally got it as an import. Actually, a buddy of mine, he picked it up from the store, Rasputin's. He was there and he saw it, and he knew, well, he bought it for me and brought it over and gave it to me. So, which was cool. And I enjoyed listening to new music. It's always great to hear new music from the band. And it was like, well, why didn't they, keep doing this, or just put a full album out? I guess, it is, like Mark said, a precursor to Creatures, though. So.
Yep. Cool. Nice to hear that. Lonnie, your thoughts on Killers?
Well, I enjoy the 4 songs. It's not, I guess I ranked it lower because it's just not on my go-to if I'm going to go listen to Kiss. I'm not big on compilation albums. I know the band's really high on compilation albums, but I'm not real big on that. And I guess I enjoy those 4 songs, but it's just, they don't move the needle a whole lot for me. I'm kind of like, Julian kind of summed it up when he said it's just kind of like one one note the whole way through. They don't, I don't know, they just don't do a whole lot for me. Well, they're decent. Now I'm with Mark. I enjoy them better than most anything that's on Hot in the Shade. They're just not anything that gets me excited.
Yeah, here.
Like, I'm going to go here. No,
so Lonnie's advice is, rather than listening to Hot in the Shade, go throw on these 4 tracks, and I wholeheartedly agree. All right, yes. in 7th place, Animalize. And that actually is supposed to be the band's best-selling album of the 1980s, having nearly attained double platinum, but since it's never been recertified, I guess we'll never know. I ranked this pretty low, and it's always been low on my list. I think I did have it, Mark and me, again, both had it, third from bottom in our list. And for me, it's always been because it's missing something, like Gene. But it's missing something in terms of the songs. That there's something in the sound, in the production, that just leaves it lacking. And while Paul's stuff is fantastic, Heaven's on Fire, obviously, Under the Gun, I've had enough Into the Fire, the rest of it is pretty, and that includes Thrills in the Night, is pretty lackluster. But sonically, it's totally missing something like passion, that unquantifiable thing for me, to my ears. Mark, you hate it as well, so you're next.
Well, what's it missing? It's missing a decent producer. I mean, it started off with Michael James Jackson doing the drums with them, and then he had to take off and do other things. And who took over? Paul and executive producer Gene Simmons. So that pretty much explains why it ended up being not sonically as good, because that's pretty much one of the more earlier records they got production credit for, I think, right? So, and I agree. There's the songs are, some of them are decent. Heaven's on Fire was good and stuff like that. But again, for me personally, my older sister had this record and she just played it to death. And she was one of those people that once she found a song that she liked on a record, it'd be like, zzz, put the needle back on it again. Zzz, put the needle back on it again. I'm like, no, keep playing the record, And she would just listen to it, and that song became quickly, a cheese grater to my ears after a while. So,
which was
Heaven's on Fire.
Of course.
Yeah, that was the one that she kept playing over and over and over. I was like, oh man. But this record I have a funny relationship with, because when I'm in the mood to listen to it, I will listen to it like for a couple of days in a row and find that I kind of, find it's okay, because some of the guitar playing is pretty good by Mark St. John. It is a little crazy and over the top in spots, but sometimes I'm in the mood for that, But is it sonically their best rig? No, not even close. Is it their best written stuff? Definitely not even close.
Yeah, Ken, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I ranked it 6 on mine. I think I didn't like it as much before, but I like it more now than I did before. I don't know why, but I agree, though, the production is not the greatest. He should have probably had Gene produce it instead of having Paul produce it, because I think Gene produces better, in my opinion. But the problem with it is, again, there's a couple of songs, Gene songs at the end there, that are not great.
Whoa!
I know, it's surprising, but Burn Bitch. Actually, I like Burn Bitch Burn. Excuse my language, and.
It's a kid podcast, a Kiss podcast, not a kid's podcast.
Lonely as the Hunter. I actually like that song, and that was the first one that Kulick played on. Bruce did, but otherwise, the other problem with it is it's not cohesive as far as song wise and theme. It just kind of it doesn't flow well. That's the other, problem with the album. But otherwise, it's not horrible. It's not horrible.
All right, like Mark
Except
and me.
For I know Mark.
It's not horrible.
That's Kendrick.
Sorry, my dog just.
It's not horrible as some others think it is.
My dog just dropped a huge fart here. Sorry, I'm just trying to get. Jesus, I'm getting stinked out here by
Let's
her.
wait till we get to Asylum.
Her timing's terrible. She really should have done that during Smashes. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, Lonnie, you ranked this the same as Ken. So
I put it 6. It's midway for me because I think Asylum. Can't say Asylum. Animalize is one of the first albums I had. Is one of the first albums I had on my own. I had an audio cassette of it when I was a kid, and played the hell out of it. So it's okay. I mean, but as I gotten older and I go back and listen to it now, I'm like, that's not as good as I remember it was when I was a kid. So that moves it back down to 6 as opposed to higher up. And you guys talk about Gene and Paul producing and the issues that you guys have with the album. And I guess I go back when I think about this album now and looking at it, in a broader scope, but I think this album is missing, and maybe an unpopular opinion amongst some, but what this album is missing is Vinnie Vincent. And I wish we would have gotten the opportunity to hear another album of Vinnie with the band and what some of those songs that turned up on those Invasion albums could have sounded like with Gene and Paul, and gotten another dose of Vinnie and the band with another album. That's what the album's missing.
Yep. I agree.
You and Ken are obviously both on the reasonable side of this podcast today. All right, in 6th place.
I'm not drinking today, so I'm on the reasonable side.
And you don't have a dog farting in your office. All right, in sixth place, Music from the Elder. That's about right for me, to my taste. Where did I have this? I had this in 6th, so I obviously just made it my wish, and I think it's a good album. I think it sounds beautiful. It's recorded beautifully. There are some fantastic tracks on it, notably The Oath, Odyssey, Under the Rose, Dark Lights. It's really got some good material. Probably one of the greatest Kiss anthems. Doesn't have enough Ace, but it sounds beautiful. The guitar work that Paul does on it is fantastic. So it's always kind of been middle of the road for me. I go through phases where I write books on it. Actually, Tim writes the books on it. I just help with it. But I'm that committed to the album. And then I go for a couple of years where I won't listen to it. So it's just one of those albums. Mark.
Yeah. I've really had this album grow on me over the last couple of years. I mean, the book helped, obviously, because once I read it and got more detail about it, it became more of an interesting listen because, you learn new things about it that, you kind of listen for or, pay more attention to. So it's definitely went up. Maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe it would have been a situation where it would have been a lot lower, right? But I think where it is about right. It's about middle area. It has different, it has some different kinds of style of writing, obviously, for them. So that takes a little bit of getting used to. But, the songs are pretty good. I think the best quote for this is it a good record? Yes, but it's just not a great Kiss record. So.
Fair enough. Ken, you ranked this the highest of any of us.
Yeah, I ranked it at number 4 in my list. I really enjoy it a lot. Yes, I almost separated it from the rest of the albums because it's such a left turn for Kiss at the time. It was really a left turn they took. Nice shirt, Mark. And but when I first listened to it, when I put it on, played the Oath, and then it went into the other stuff. I'm like, wow, this is really different. Where are they going here? But after a few listens, I really enjoyed it. I think it is well written and well performed. Again, it's not your typical Kiss album about girls and so on. But I just think it stands up pretty darn well against other albums. I go back and listen to it quite a bit, so that's why it's up there.
That's a very reasonable explanation. Lonnie, you had this one the lowest of us all.
Did I?
You did.
Yeah, it's 7. Well, I enjoy The Elder. Mark summed it up with a quote that Kiss gives about The Elder a lot. Well, it's a good album. It's not a good Kiss album. If I'm in the mood for a Kiss album, The Elder is very different than anything else. If I'm in the mood for a Kiss album, I'm in the mood for one of the classic six the majority of the time. But if I'm in the mood for The Elder, I can be in the mood for The Elder though too. So in ranking Kiss albums, it's hard for me to give it a higher ranking. While I do enjoy it, when I think about Kiss, I don't necessarily always think about The Elder. While I do enjoy it. I enjoy Julian's book very much so, and I enjoy learning, behind the scenes stuff that went into the album. But as far as the album standalone by itself, I just don't have it high on my Kiss fandom rankings. There are standouts though with The Oath and with I and World Without Heroes. I enjoy those all thoroughly, but for me, it's not higher standard as the others.
Yep. So middle of the road, and talking about as middle of the road as one can get, and talking about another one that there's a book about, Crazy Nights in number 5. And surprisingly, I ranked this, when I was going through my list, this one kept bumping up a little higher, as I've really come to have a greater appreciation of Bruce's guitar work on this album. Is absolutely fantastic. I've said it before on shows that I think it's comparable with Revenge in terms of the quality of his playing. And obviously he's always a very good player, but just the consistency throughout the whole album of what he brings and the different skills, the different technical tricks, the production where you can clearly hear every facet of this album. There's also some incredibly crafted songs on this. So again, it's middle of the road because there's some great material on it. The production takes away from that to a certain extent and leaves it sounding a bit dated now to my ears. You just know that it fits in there with Ultimate Sin. It fits in there with the Heart albums. It's so kind of mid-'80s or mid to late 80s kind of over-processed, tinny pop metal. So it's middle of the road, but I do listen to this one quite a bit more than I probably ought to admit. Mainly, it might just be because it was the first new Kiss album that I bought after becoming a fan, and I remember waiting for it. Ken, how about you?
Yeah, I had this pretty low. It's number 7 on mine, just above Hot in the Shade. Yeah, I mean, I think I enjoyed it when it first came out. I saw what Kiss was trying to do with following the trend, but it hasn't lived up. It hasn't aged well, I guess is the word. It is very tinny to me. I want to hear guitars. I want to hear the guitar. I agree, Bruce. Great guitar work on that album. Fantastic. But one guitar solo or a bunch of solos from him is not going to save an album that has a lot of other, fluff, in my opinion. I think there's some well-written songs, but they're not, again, like The Elder. To me, this is another one that's not a Kiss album in the sense that it should be. So yeah, it could have been produced by somebody else and changed it quite a lot over what it ended up being. So yeah, I just don't listen to it, not much. I just can't get over the production. Really can't get over it.
Fair enough. And you had this lowest. Lonnie, you had this up pretty high as well.
Yeah. I had it at 5. I enjoy Crazy Nights. I'm with Julian. I probably enjoy it a little more than I should, actually. It's very, and I guess the reason why I like it is because it sounds like it's straight out of the mid-'80s. And that's that's right in my wheelhouse that I really enjoy. So while it does sound tinny and it does have its flaws and its warts, I do enjoy Crazy Nights for how Bon Jovi and esque or whatever it sounds. Probably because I like Bon Jovi, right? So why wouldn't I like Crazy Nights? Because that's what they were doing at the time. So it's good. I don't there's not many songs on the album that I really just skip over. I really like I'll Fight Hell to Hold You, things like that even too. I was actually, when I went, after I bought Crazy Nights, I went, go back and what were the singles on this? Because I didn't buy it when it came out. It's one of the albums I had to go back and buy. And I was like, really? I Fight Hell to Hold You wasn't a single? I found that hard to believe because I really enjoyed that song. So for me, it's good. I enjoy it. I enjoy the 80s vibe on it. So it's a little bit higher for me than you guys. So.
Yeah, Paul Stanley likes the album too. They were even here's a fun.
Yeah, he does.
Fun little fact.
Yeah, he does.
They were thinking about re-releasing "Reason to Live" as a single in the summer of 1990. Just think of that, because he didn't think that it got a fair shake when it came out, and it didn't. It stiffed, I think, at 64 on the U.S. chart. Mm-hmm. So when they were heading out on tour, in what was it, May 1990, throughout that spring they'd dallied around with using that as a tour single. So go figure. One of those things that didn't happen. But I guess I can't remember when Rise to It came out, but they already had a video for that. So Mark, you like this the most of us.
Yeah, I mean, my number 4 to number 1 picks were all picked for the reason because I think all of them have something very strong and significant about each of those records and a strong memory attached to them for me. That's why they all kind of did. Now, for me, Crazy Nights was number 3, mainly because there's that song. I mean, Turn on the Night has a huge memory for me going to California the first time with a convertible car and having that on the radio when it came out. It was just one of those things I'll never forget in my mind when I went down there, and that song is on this record. And besides that, while I agree that the production is a little too glossy and glittery, a lot of the songs are fantastic. I mean, I've had, the opportunity to hear some of the earlier demos that were done for it. So obviously the songs could have taken a different road when they were maybe looked at from that route. So to me, the songs are not bad. It's just how they were approached in the production that maybe weakened them a bit. But for me, I just attached this album to kind of like what Lonnie said. It's a kind of a mid-80s album. The mid-80s to me was a very interesting time period too, because there's a lot of stuff going on in Toronto. There's lots of concerts. That was a time period when I started seeing a lot of concerts. Like my first concert I ever went to, I was like 10. I went to see Rush for Grace Under Pressure in Toronto, and from then on in, I was hooked on going to see concerts. So that time period, there was everybody coming through. Scorpions, like all kinds of bands were coming through there, and I was always having an opportunity to go see it. So the late 80s was a time period of great concert going, and this was being played a lot, Crazy Night stuff on the radio and stuff like that. So it's attached to me in that sort of a memory.
Nice, great memories as well. And I will say, that period had production like this on other albums. Mm-hmm. Stuff like Tesla's Mechanical Resonance has a very similar production, but that's an example where it works. Yeah. Versus Kiss's that it didn't work. So, it's a fine line in personal taste and whatnot. All right, so we're getting into the top 4 now. In 4th place, and this is a bit of a surprise, Unmasked. Again, I think it's very fair that it's right next to Crazy Nights because both of them are very similar in terms of what they were trying to do as an album. I've got this middle of the road again. I think it's got some great pop songs on it for everything that was just said about Turn on the Night. You can say about Tomorrow as well, which just swings how good Unmasked actually was, as were Ace's songs and Is That You, the cover. So, it's got some very strong songs that are let down by the production and where the band was going directionally, becoming a complete comic book band and, everything else that went kind of wrong in their world. Let's see, who had this highest out of... Lonnie and Ken again. Ken.
Yeah, the difference between this and Crazy Nights for me is songs on here I think are much better than what was on Crazy Nights. Plus we had Ace still, which is great to have a few Ace songs on there. I think, and also one of Gene's best songs ever, in my opinion. On there.
It's City.
Naked City, yes, and but yeah, I agree with the great pop of Tomorrow by Paul, and even Shandy, works on it, so that's why it's high. I mean, it's well written. It's just, the production could have been better. And maybe if it was more like the Dynasty production, it would have, I think, been better. But yeah, it's a good album. It's not their best album, but it's a pretty darn good album. So
yeah, maybe if Eddie Kramer had just engineered it rather than Vinnie Poncia producing it.
I agree.
When you think of the sound of those the Alive 2 studio recordings, Lonnie, you had it ranked the same as Ken.
Yeah, I think song-wise, this album is very, very strong. And I agree with Ken. It's nice to have Ace Frehley still in the band. You get some Ace Frehley songs in there. It's song-wise, it's great. Production-wise, it's lacking tremendously. Had you had a different producer, if you could strip out the keyboards and other bull crap that's in there, I think you'd have a very strong album that could have sold a whole lot better, and maybe given them the opportunity to tour America instead of just going away and hiding after the album was released. After you tour Europe and tour Australia, you didn't do a proper tour of the States because the market wasn't there for you to do so. But I think but it's a shame because those songs are really good. So I think if those songs had been produced differently, I think the album would have been accepted a whole lot better. So I have it really high on my list because of the fact that I think the songs are so strong. There's production lacking, yes, like I mentioned, the production is lacking. But I think song-wise, it's one of their stronger albums.
Yep. This is one that I would love to hear the multi-tracks from, to hear what is buried and never made it into the actual mix, just what else was recorded. I'd just be fascinated to hear that for this album. All right, Mark, you were pretty much on, just one behind Ken and Lonnie on that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, a lot of the top four of mine all had strong connections for some reason. And Unmasked is one of those records. To me, I've always looked at Unmasked as sort of the sister record to Dynasty. It kind of was along the same path, but maybe not as good. One of the things that I noticed about it when listening to it, I like that it still has that kind of New York vibe that Dynasty had that I really enjoyed, that it kind of went over into Unmasked. One of the things, though, I think that happened this time is I don't know if Vinnie Poncia had a bit of cotton balls in his ears and didn't turn up some of the high-end stuff on the mixing board, because it's lacking that sheen that Dynasty had. This is kind of a little bit more duller of a mix, I find. I think that they could have, if they went back in and remixed it and just, fiddled with the high mids and the high frequencies a little bit more on the guitars and stuff like that, maybe pulled back the keyboards, it would have been fantastic. The songs are all there. The singing's good. Ace has some fantastic songs on there. His guitar tone is really good. It could have just needed a little bit beefing up here and there. It's all stuff that can be fixed to make it even more stellar than it is. But for me, the thing that always makes this record memorable for me, and I have a lot of pressings of this. This is one of the records that I have at least 9-10 different pressings of this. I really connected with this record for some reason, but mainly it's because of that. The New York vibe, I really liked it and I enjoyed it. But if they would have just tweaked it just that little bit more, I think it would have been a really standout record for them.
They just need to bump up the Nevison a little bit on the production, eh?
That's a little bit.
All right, so number 3 is going to be no shock to anyone because Mark and I obviously skew this whole ranking with our picks for this album. Asylum. Shut your eyes, don't see the cover, listen to the music. Actually, don't shut your eyes because you will see the cover, because I just told you not to. It pops into your head and explodes. You're like, holy shit, that cover's bad. But the music, everything that's wrong with Animalize, for me, is fixed with Asylum. The production is much better. You've got what was missing is now there. The salt and pepper, the seasoning is there. And I think it may be some of those same things that Mark was just talking about. Some of those highs are back in the mix. There's a little bit more depth of frequency. And I think the songs, and no one will ever be able to change my mind on this, because this is the album that got me into Kiss. Even if I only ranked it, my third favorite album of the 80s. I just think the songs are stunning. Who Wants to Be Lonely to this day, and I'm so glad they made a video for it. Tears Are Falling. All night, just stupid 14-year-old me says, yeah, look at the girls. So I think the songs are stronger than the previous album. I think the production's better than the previous album. I think the drums are bombastic. And just like the previous album, Heaven's on Fire obviously has a great story on it, that Paul's intro was just him warming up in the studio, and they happened to have tape running. They said, that's great, we're keeping that. Same thing happened on this album. Eric Carr was warming up in the studio, just getting ready, and boom, that's your intro to King of the Mountain. Unplanned, those sorts of stories are what I love about this band, and to this day, I love that album. I love that starting track, that opening track. Just what a great opener for a Kiss album. Lonnie, Asylum.
I had it 4 on my list, pretty, fairly high. I enjoy it. I enjoy the 80s vibe to it. Like I enjoy it, like I mentioned with Crazy Nights. Tears Are Falling. Yeah, Tears Are Falling. Who Wants to Be Lonely is very high up on my all-time Kiss tracks. So it's good. It's an album. I still had to go back, like I mentioned about Crazy Nights. I still had to go back and buy this one too. It wasn't one that I got. It's one of the few I didn't get still when it first came out. I was still too young. So it's good. I think Julian said it well, in that what they got wrong on Animalize, they got right on Asylum. That a lot of the problems are fixed, and it's a classic 80s style Kiss record. So it's a standout for me as well. And good tracks, good songs. Put it higher on my list, just like you guys.
Nice, Mark. You ranked this the highest of. Tell us why.
Tell us why it's number 1, Mark.
Well, I mean, I think that Paul learned his lesson from Animalize as far as producing goes. I think he did a stand-up job on this record. Again, one of those records that for me has a great memory attached to it. It was also a concert tour that I was supposed to go and see, and unfortunately wasn't able to go see due to, prior arrangements, unfortunately. But I just love this record. I think, again, Bruce Kulick did a fantastic job on this record. I think that, let's put it this way. He did this. This is his first record that he did full for them. And right after this record came out, they had him do an instrumental record. So that's got to tell you something already, how good, his playing on this album. So I just think that there's nothing wrong with this record. Every song on here is very good. I think the production of it is really good. And to me, it'll always be the best non-makeup album that they've done, period.
Wow.
That's deep. All right, Ken.
While it's my lowest, I guess, at number 5 on my list. I have it ranked up just above Animalize. So yeah, it was a big improvement over Animalize, actually. While I didn't love the cover, of course, and that sort of thing, the songs are pretty darn good. And even the Gene songs, which is surprisingly, with some of them like Trial by Fire and so on, are pretty darn good. He's kind of like finding his footing again as the 80s go, and he's done pretty good a lot better over Animalize. His song material was totally improved over that. But it's solid. I don't think there's really the only track that really I don't care for that much on this whole thing is probably Radar for Love. To me, that's like a throwaway for me. Everything else is great. Everything else is great on this album. I listened to it not that long ago either. I probably a couple weeks ago, the full thing through in the car. So I enjoyed it. I didn't skip.
Nice. All right, let's do a recap because obviously the top two are just predictable. And if you made it this far through this episode, you already know which they are. You're just wondering which one's going to be number one. All right, on 4 points, smashes, thrashes, and hits. And this is obviously just the average for our panel of the points from our list. On 9 points, Hot in the Shade. On 13 points, Kiss Killers. On 16 points, Animalize. On 22 points, Music from the Elder. On 25 points, Crazy Nights. On 28 points, Unmasked. On 31 points, Asylum. In number 2, on 34 points, Lick It Up. And it's pop perfection for me. This is my favorite album of the 1980s. It's just everything on that album is perfect, with one minor thing. If it just sounded a little closer to the sonics of Creatures, it would be absolute perfection. There's just some edge has been lost from that energy of the anger and the drive that they were recording in 82 is just missing in 83, but the songs are improved. Vinny's got a more prominent role, semi-fully integrated into the band, and just from start to finish, it is, for me, the most perfect of the 80s albums. It's just nearly flawless. You know, it's like a 10.0 with a slight ... All right. Anyone else have this really high? Mark, you have this the lowest of us all. Your thoughts?
Okay. Now I know I'm going to get hate mail for this. Personally, I think that this album is very blah compared to Creatures of the Night. To me, I look at it the same way like Dynasty and Unmasked. I think Creatures is the far superior record to this in every shape and form. I agree with Paul Stanley. He said the same thing. He thinks that it's a way better record than Lick It Up is. And to me, it's mainly because of the production is it's just flat compared to what you heard from like just imagine listening to Creatures and then you put that Lick It Up on, you're like, ugh, like, and what a downplay in production that was. You know, and this whole reasoning that Gene gave, well, that the production didn't work on the last record, so we changed it. Well, one record is hardly enough to give it a chance. I mean, give me a break, you know. And really, the other thing that kind of goes against this record for me is the ending of this record. Dance All Over Your Face and On the Eighth Day are terrible songs. Okay, I never liked them. I think that ending the album with 2 Gene songs like that, and not even good Gene songs, just to me plummeted it down the rankings for me. I just don't think it just holds any water to Creatures, and I really don't think it holds any water to the records that I put before it. I think Unmasked I like better. I like Asylum a lot better than this. I mean, really, I mean, yeah, it did put Kiss back on the map, but it's because they took the makeup off and they had a single that connected, Lick It Up. I mean, it's a good song, right? But other than that, I mean, I don't know. Yes, I know. Boomy, hiss, curse, throw your eggs at me, but you know that's what I think. I just think it's the bad follow-up to Creatures.
Well, nobody's perfect. Ken.
Yeah. First of all, Mark is wrong, and so secondly, no. I mean, Mark, you said it was black. Actually, the album is white, right? It's white.
No,
cover.
bland. Like
oh,
bland.
bland. I thought you said black. Okay, bland. Okay, sorry. I guess my earphones weren't good. Well, okay. This album, Look It Up, it flip flops for me between Creatures of the Night and Look It Up. It could be number 1. It could be number 2. I mean, it goes back and forth. I do agree though on the production that if they would have retained that Creatures production, the drums. And it's more separation. It was, cleaner Creatures. Because I remember when I first got Look It Up, I noticed that even the vocals were not as clean, not as easy to understand the lyrics or what they were singing. Because I remember getting Lick It Up on a cassette like a week before it was even officially released, because I knew somebody at the record store. Which was nice. Cool. It was nice. But I just love that album. I actually, in the Gene songs, even at the end, I know some people don't like that. I enjoy those. I think they're pretty darn good. I mean, they're different. They're not your typical Gene song, but they're pretty darn good. We do know it's Vinny's favorite Kiss album. I know that. But I think it's the material is strong, very strong because of the writing. They didn't have to go get a rock and roll hell from Bachman Turnover Drive or wherever it came from originally. They had a lot of material and it was pretty darn strong. So, Not for the Innocent, great, man. Just a fantastic song. So, again, Creature of the Night, look it up. On any given day, I could flip flop those as my number 1 or 2. They're just both great albums, in my opinion.
Agreed. Lonnie.
Yeah, Mark's wrong. And
it's too wrong.
Look It Up is fantastic. It's everything a Kiss album needed to be in 1983, and it's the album that put them back in the public eye and back on the map, and with good reason, not just taking the makeup off. Not only did they need to take the makeup off to spark their resurgence, but they needed a good album to go along with it, and that's exactly what they had. From the opening sounds of Exciter and all the way through, it is one of my favorite Kiss albums and always will be. No question about it. I mean, Vinny's playing on it is magnificent. Eric's drumming is phenomenal. And Gene and Paul's vocals are good as well. And the songwriting, say what you want, the songwriting is incredible. And that's why the album is so strong, is Vinny's songwriting.
Yep, I totally agree. I think when Vinny's restrained, like All Systems Go, I prefer to, Invasion.
Correct.
Then you get the benefits, and it's the consistency throughout the album. What's been funny on all of our lists is that today Ken and Lonnie have been one faction with 5 identical picks, and Mark and I have been the other faction with 5 identical different picks, in the same rankings. So you can see who's on which page. All right, number 1, obviously Creatures of the Night on 38 points, clear winner. It was Ken and Lonnie's favorite, Mark and my second favorite, so that's how it has a KO punch over Lick It Up, and it's obvious that the anger and aggression and appropriately determination and drive and motivation were what really brought Kiss back with Creatures, even if it did shit all commercially. It was a failure. But it was a massive success in that it turned the band around and gave them, I would say, the energy to face the rest of the 80s. It was a full stop to the Elder period and everything that it came before, and was one foot in a forward direction. So they finally moved forward and started progressing. The material that they did themselves, even the stuff that Adam Mitchell and the co-writes have, Creatures of the Night, again, what an opening. If you're going to have a declaration of intent after, the last album before that, Elder, was supposed to start off with the fricking fanfare. I mean, come on, think about it. You can't go further away from that than the Creatures opening. So, great songs, great performances, some of the best Gene vocals of the 80s on this album. It's really distracting. Thank you. That's Ken telling me to shut up. All right, Ken, tell us why Creatures is your top pick.
I'm not telling you to shut up. Yeah, Creatures of the Night. I mean, I wish you guys could have been there, and maybe you were, but you weren't. But when I first got that album and put it on, and I was just totally blown away. It's what Kiss needed at the time and what the fan needed. I was the fan. And after the prior few albums, wow, I was like, it was a kick to the balls. It's like, man, these guys went all out and made something great, something that they needed to do. And I loved it. I must have played it like over and over. And I told you the story before where I right after listening to maybe the first couple songs or first side of the album, I called my buddy and said, they're back, Kiss is back.
Mm-hmm.
They did it. It was like they pulled it off. So it was just a great thing. And again, all the music on there is great. The playing, the production that's it, top notch. I mean, that's what really, I think, puts it over the top. So it's number one with Look It Up right there by its side, in my opinion. So great stuff.
Yeah, and I was going to end my thoughts with it's not a KO, it's a TKO. And that's why, for me, Lick It Up just edges it, is because of something like Rock and Roll Hell and 9 songs versus 10. Well, we could debate that Lick It Up should only have had 9 if you take off one of those Gene songs you don't like. But, there's just a slight inconsistency on Creatures that may come from all the different guitarists and all the different kind of things that come together, which are, Lick It Up is a more consistently performed album, with the exception of Exciter, obviously, which is negligible. But Rock and Roll Hell is just what makes that my number 2 album versus my number 1. And ask me tomorrow and I could flip them around easily like you. Both of them are extremely good. Lonnie, you also had this as your top pick.
Yeah, I could not flip them around. As much as I liked Creatures of the Night, much as I sung Lick It Up's praises a minute ago, Creatures of the Night is clear-cut number 1 today, tomorrow, and always will be. Creatures of the Night is one of my, as much as I love Lick It Up, Creatures of the Night is even higher on that list, and it's by a large step. It is sonically one of their best sounding albums, if not their best sounding album. It's right up there with Revenge, the way the band comes off in the studio. Michael James Ashton did a phenomenal job. I wish that would have been duplicated to a T on Lick It Up, and unfortunately it was not. So, and I guess another reason why it's so high up there, because it is one of the albums that I grew up with. It's like one of my introductions to Kiss was Creatures of the Night. My brother had
Ding, you're out of time. The Gong Show.
My brother had audio cassettes of Destroyer and Creatures of the Night. Those were my introductions to Kiss for those 2 albums. So Creatures always has a high place for me. And because it is such a great album, it's number 1. It's number 1 80s album, Kiss album, hands down. Always has, always will be.
Nice. Mark, does your flatulent dog need to go somewhere? We better get to you.
No, she just came to show me that she found her little stuffed pig toy, so that's it. She's always so proud when she finds her toys for some reason. Anyways, is it my turn to go?
It sure is.
Sure.
Okay. So Creatures. This is the record. Okay, it's number 2 for me on my list. Only reason why Asylum is higher is because I just like the songs better, and it has a little bit more of a stronger connection for me, personally. But Creatures of the Night is a record that I listen to a lot, really a lot. I really love it. It's the record that made me get much more interested into audio engineering. When I heard the sound of that drum set and the whole production of this record, I was totally floored. I was like, wow, like how do you get a drum set to sound like that? It was like cannon fire. And, and especially when you get into some of my friends' cars who had like these, pimped out stereo systems, and you tell them, put this in your car. And they were like, holy shit, when you put it in their car, like, who the hell is that? They were always like impressed with the drum sound and everything. And, I went deep into it, finding out all these, Telefunken microphones that he used in the studio to record the drums and this and that, and what kind of amps they used. And, it had that kind of effect on me, way beyond just the songs themselves. I mean, the songs are great. And I'm going to go on record to say that this has, even though Gene doesn't play as much physically on this record, but it has one of the best sounding bass guitar sounds on here, for sure. Like Rock and Roll Hell during the verses, that clickety clackety bass, I really love that sound of his bass guitar, and it appears throughout this album in certain songs as well. I just think it's fantastic. I mean, now I know that we're sick of this song now, but back when this record was relatively fresher for everybody, War Machine was a song that I just loved listening to. And it was also the theme of one of my favorite wrestlers back in the day, Taz. He used to come into the ring with War Machine. So I thought that was really cool back when he was an ECW wrestler. So it has that kind of connection to me that I really love this. I mean, it's just such a powerful sounding record that people would use it for stuff like that. Like a wrestler would use it to come into the ring because it sounded awesome on big systems, you know? So it's a great album. I think it's Michael James Jackson's crowning achievement as a producer. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
But it also is something that you couldn't plan. And how did they get those drums sounding as great as they did? Luck. Because that wasn't Eric Carr's kit.
No.
You know,
No.
that was...
And they did...
That was Toto's... it was, you know, a Heinz 57 kit, you know, that had come from Toto's studio session drummer.
But they did also check the drum rooms. They also did go and research the rooms.
They totally
and stuff
researched
like that.
the rooms. Gene and Eric went around with microphones and recorded loops until they found one that sounded right, you know, just hitting snare until they got one that they liked. So, you know, they did the research on what they want in terms of ambiance, but then they got lucky with the drum kit and put Eric Carr. Eric fucking Carr is the machine. So, you know, it's just magical. And the band was motivated and determined. So it's no shock that it's the number one pick from this panel. So, you know, that's our show for this week. Let's just do a quick recount from our least favorite to our most favorite. Smash, Thrashes, and Hits, Hot in the Shade, Killers, Animalize, music from The Elder Crazy Nights, Unmasked, Asylum, Look It Up, and number one pick from the KissFAQ panel this week, Creatures of the Night, our favorite album, studio album of the Kiss's 1980s output. You know, what do you think? You know, who surprised you with where they put an album? You know, what are your top 10 lists from these albums that were released in the 1980s? You know, everyone's got different tastes, and every single one of our lists is right because they're our list, and they'll probably change tomorrow if we redid them. So, you know, that's the nice thing about being a Kiss fan. There's an album for every day of the week, you know. All right, let's leave that there. Remember, J.R. Smalling needs your help. See the link in this show episode or on the FAQ or on social media somewhere else. Do what you can. It's very much appreciated, and I'm sure J.R. is deeply appreciative of the response that this GoFundMe is getting. So I will see those of you that I see in Indy come up and say hi. If I don't remember you from last time we met, I apologize in advance. I'm really, really bad, and I'm not taking my glasses. So I'll see you there. Guys, thanks for being here, and we'll be back next week. All right, bye for now. Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we've broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.